Okay, welcome back to lesson 3 of printmaking. Let's have a look at what we did last week. Hopefully you should have with you your linear design that you made in your sketchbook or on a piece of paper from My Own Art. And also we should hopefully have our etch design that we made in our polystyrene block or your polystyrene pizza base. I want to say an absolute well done to everybody who had a go at this so far, because I know it wasn't easy getting the resources, but if you were able to get the resources, that is fantastic. Well done you for putting in the effort to do that. I want to say a particular well done to Lillian from Year 5, who sent me her work, and oh my goodness, it is fantastic. We can see here that she has first of all drawn a beautifully clear linear design from My Own Art, and then we can see in the middle picture that she is carefully etching into her polystyrene block. And finally, we can see this amazing result, which is exactly what we're looking for. So if you haven't yet done this stage, then now is your chance to, this week, get yourself a polystyrene pizza base, and you need to redraw your design, just like Lillian has done, onto your pizza base, remembering to hold your pencil, your nice sharp pencil, almost horizontally so that it just drags down and indents into your polystyrene plate rather than tearing it. We need to make nice deep indents into that block without cutting right through. Okay, so hopefully you're already at the same stage Lillian's at, and thank you, Lillian, well done for your amazing example. Okay, so let's think about what equipment we need today to help us with our artwork. We need our polystyrene plate like Lillian had with our indentations in. We also need a roller of some description. So this one here is absolutely ideal, although this is something that you are less likely to have at home. So if you're in school, we're lucky, we've got these rollers. They're lino rollers, and another word for them is a brayer. If you don't have a brayer at home, you might have a small roller like this one for painting the walls, and that is also perfectly fine to use. Failing that, you might be able to use a sponge, but I think a roller is definitely more helpful today. We also need to have some pale coloured paint. Now, ideally, again, lino printing ink or some form of printing ink would be the best thing to use. However, if we don't have lino ink at home, which is not very likely, then we can use acrylic paint, just normal acrylic paint that you can get from the works or from Home Bargains or Hobbycraft, anywhere like that. So you need your acrylic paint, and you also need 3 sheets at least of A4 paper. I would suggest using white paper today, and if you have cartridge paper, that is absolutely amazing, like in a sketchbook. But if you don't have cartridge paper, just normal A4 printing paper will be fine. Just thinking about the colours of our paint, today we're going to use a very pale coloured paint, so I suggest something like yellow or another light colour that you really like. Over the next 2 weeks we're going to use 2 more colours that are a bit darker, so you could have something like yellow today, orange next week and red the week after, or you could have yellow, green and blue. Anything that you feel are 3 colours that go together and that are different gradations of darkness, that have different tones in them, different values of colour. But today we need to start with the lightest one. So I suggest yellow is a good one to start with, or you could do pink or something like that, but just make sure it's not white, because obviously that won't show up on your paper. Okay, let's see what we're going to do. Right, we've got our blocks ready, so we need to make a print on each of our A4 pieces of paper. We need to ink up first. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to print. If you're at school, I would like you, after watching me, can you make 1 practice print, please, in your sketchbooks, and then 3 more on 3 sheets of, one on each of 3 sheets of paper after that. If you're at home, just make 3 prints like I'm going to show you. Print. Now it's time for us just to write a little analysis note, a little annotation that can go onto one of our pieces of work, or if you're at school, into your sketchbook. Sometimes we look at high school sketchbooks just to give us a bit of inspiration, and seeing as we're in year 5 now, we can definitely take some notes from high school. So this sketchbook here is an old one of my daughter's from many years ago when she was at high school. And I just want to show you the way it's presented, where she has put paint over the pages and then she's written on top. There are little things in the sketchbook that slide out just to make it look interesting. There are flaps which you can lift up, little bits and bobs tied on with wire. And things poked into pockets, like I said. So if in particular, if we go back to this page, for example, where she's dribbled paint on or scraped paint across to make it look interesting before she starts to write, that's the kind of thing we can do to make our notes look interesting. So we just want to write a little note about what we've done, annotating to say what the process was that we've just gone through and what we've discovered, because this today is only step 1 out of 3, because we're not just doing one print, we're doing what's called reduction block printing. This is our initial print, and then over the next 2 weeks we're going to use different colours and we'll talk about the reduction element. So if I just show you how I'm going to write my little note, that'll give you an idea of what you can do. So if you look here, I've got my piece of paper that I've stuck down. It's a piece of text from a book. I've just torn it off, stuck it onto another piece of paper and scraped some paint over it. So now it's time for me to write on top, just to make it look a bit more interesting. Okay, I'm going to read that back to make sure it makes sense. First, we drew a linear design based on Mayan art. We transposed this onto a polystyrene block to create an indented printing block. I found my best prints were created when I used less paint and pressed really hard. Because my one in the middle, where I used too much paint, was a lot more splodgy looking and indistinct than when I used less paint. It came out much more clearly. I can really see my patterns there. Now I've written that in a bit of a scruffy way, so I could go over that to make my writing clearer. I could even embellish my sheet if I wanted to, and then I can stick it on to the top of my one that I don't like so much. This can be my practice one, with some masking tape, so I can lift it up and down like a little flap to make it interesting. Now if you're in school, I'll turn it back here. If you're in school, it would be good if you could stick yours in your practice print that you did in your sketchbook, because obviously our sketchbook in school is always for practice and experimentation and annotation. Fantastic, guys. Let's see how you get on.
I know myself. When the moon comes out, there's nothing else but you.